Welcome on into the Wolverine recruiting show. I am Clayton Sayfie with EJ Holland from the Wolverine.com. You can check us out there. Use the promo code BLUE60. Become a subscriber for 2 months, absolutely free. Try us out with that free trial. EJ, we are going to break down the top recruiting storylines of the week, as always, and some recruiting storylines that should excite some Michigan fans here because there's some big names. We're going to talk about quarterback recruiting, obviously always a hot topic. But let's start with probably the biggest name right now on Michigan's recruiting board, five-star defensive tackle Walter Nolen, the top defensive tackle in the class of 2022. He will be visiting campus upcoming here. Tell us about Walter Nolen, the latest on him, and how big it is, I guess, to get him on campus.
Yeah, so Michigan is definitely a major player for Walter Nolen. Obviously, he has a ton of the regulars in the South involved in his recruitment. He's from the Memphis area, and a lot of people are pegging him to end up somewhere in the SEC. But Michigan has made a very, very strong run. He's open to checking out some Big Ten programs, Michigan and Ohio State. I think Michigan is definitely in that top group. They have done some great recruiting behind the scenes. Obviously, in the last couple of weeks, it's kind of gotten out there that Michigan's more of a major player for Walter Nolen than some have anticipated. The fact that he is visiting this weekend on a self-guided tour is huge. I think it speaks volumes of and kind of reaffirms that Michigan is a major player and not just one of those schools he's throwing in a graphic. He's a tremendous talent, a true defensive tackle, a guy that could come in and start literally right away. He is very interested in the fact that Michigan needs defensive linemen, specifically interior guys. So he knows he could come in and be an immediate impact guy. He could, kind of join a five-star in Will Johnson. The two have been talking frequently. And so seeing Will Johnson make the commitment to Michigan, I think kind of helped with Walter Nolen because he's like, hey, look, a fellow five-star, is going with Michigan as opposed to some of the schools I'm used to. I can do that too. His grandparents live in the Detroit area, so he has family there. I think it makes a lot of sense. He's really connecting well with Ron Bellamy, Michigan's new assistant, who is quickly becoming one of the best recruiters on staff. Bellamy has done a tremendous job relating to him on a personal level. I mean, they're even playing games on the PS5 together. So they are connecting really, really well. And so, yeah, I think Michigan is a top contender for Walter Nolen. I think this weekend will be big. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say about his trip to Ann Arbor. But all signs point to Michigan being one of the schools that will receive a summer official visit. He does want to make a decision by the end of summer. And again, I feel like Michigan is in a very, very strong position. Wouldn't be surprising to see Will Johnson link up with him during his time in Ann Arbor. So that'll be big as well. And of course, Michigan's done great recruiting in the state of Tennessee this cycle. They already have another star out of the Memphis area that is in the class in Cody Jones. So Mo Linguist will be involved in this recruitment. Sean Nua, the defensive line coach, with Bellamy's kind of leading the way and doing an impressive job so far.
We've seen Michigan pull some top talent from the South here and there, but obviously it's super tough to do that. You mentioned, a lot of people kind of assume this is a kid that's going to end up at one of the SEC schools. Obviously, Michigan now becoming more and more of a player with that Ron Bellamy connection or whatever. But, Michigan being in that mix, obviously he's got interest. He's coming to campus. Like you said, probably will come on an official visit. How tough, though, at the end will it be for a school like Michigan to actually land this kid? I know they're going to be in the mix probably for a while, but to actually at the end come away with a commitment.
Well, the thing that gives me a little more confidence with this staff is that you have guys like Ron Bellamy and Maurice Linguist involved in this recruitment. Guys that can connect, guys that are younger, guys that know how to close, even though Ron Bellamy hasn't done it like Mo Linguist has. He's definitely capable of connecting on that personal level. Like I said, Linguist does have experience doing that. He not only closed with top 100 DBs during his time at Texas A&M, he helped out with other positions and was able to help Texas A&M land some top talent as well. Obviously, Mo Linguist had the advantage of already being in the South, but I think he can do it at Michigan. He's already shown his ability to close with Will Johnson, to pull Cody Jones out of Memphis. So I think he can really help out with Walter Nolen as well. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Look, landing any guy from the South that's this highly rated, a top 5 player nationally, is going to be super tough. There's no way around it. But I think this staff is capable of doing it. All the cards are there. Will Johnson's already on board. The staff is young, hungry, and aggressive. His grandparents live in the Detroit area. There's opportunity for immediate playing time, like literally day one, whereas other schools may not be able to offer that. So I feel like Michigan is, again, in a very, very strong position.
There you go. I think people are kind of, I kind of had to ask that question. I feel like that's a great, explanation for where Michigan actually stands and the chances that Michigan has of landing a talent like Walter Nolen out of the South. We mentioned that Walter Nolen could be a kid who takes an official visit this summer to Michigan. Now, that assumes, we assume at some point this dead period by the NCAA that feels like it's been going on forever will be lifted. Michigan's starting to schedule, and you see it around with other schools around the country, schedule official visits with kids, have them come up this summer. What are some top names that are going to be on campus this summer? Again, assuming everything goes according to plan. And, I guess what are some of the top names that are starting to lock in their visits to Ann Arbor?
Yeah, like you said, the dead period is expected to be lifted this summer. Whether or not that happens, I mean, we'll just have to see. Michigan has planned for official visits before, only to get shut down by the NCAA. So wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. For now, however, they are, sending out official visit graphics, getting things scheduled, and preparing like the dead period is in fact going to end. So few guys have set official visits. A couple of key defensive line targets, starting off with Joe Strickland, Rivals 250 defensive end out of the Indianapolis area. Joe is a guy that Michigan led with very early in the process. Penn State seems to have the momentum right now. But Michigan's scheduled to have a big Zoom call with him on Sunday, like I reported last night, over at the Wolverine. If you're not a subscriber, use promo code BLUE60, get 60 days for free. But yeah, I think that, the Zoom will be big, the OVs will be big. So still a long way to go with Joe Strickland. He attends a very academic oriented private school in Indianapolis. So academics are very important to him and his family. I actually exchanged some texts with his mother last night. She's very excited about this Sunday Zoom call and about getting back on campus. They actually took a self-guided tour of Michigan in the fall. I think, had Michigan gone all in with Joe Strickland early, I think he might already be a commit. Obviously there was a change in staff, a change in philosophy, and so Penn State was able to gain momentum during that time. But I think Michigan can easily swing it back on the official visit. And Justice Finkley, a 4-star Rivals 250 prospect out of Alabama. Always tough to pull guys out of Alabama, especially when, the SEC powers are involved, and they are with Justice Finkley. But another very high academic kid. I believe his mother is a doctor. So, the education offered at Michigan is very important to the Finkley family. Michigan's been recruiting him for a long time, for more than a year. New analyst Sean Larkins has taken a big step in building relationships with high school coaches and key figures down in the state of Alabama. I think if you follow Michigan recruiting, you've seen a lot of offers go out down in Alabama, and Michigan feels like they can pull one or two every cycle. And Finkley's a guy that's very, very high on the board, that's very interested in Michigan. So we'll see how his official visit goes. You had Rivals 250 wide receiver Darius Clemens lock in an official visit. This is another guy that's at the top of the wide receiver board. He's a big physical guy on the outside with connections to Michigan. He actually grew up in the Lansing area, still has a lot of family in the state of Michigan. He was a childhood friend of 2021 signee Andro Anthony, who is sure to be his official visitor host whenever he gets to campus this summer. But I think that right now Michigan is definitely in the top five. Obviously, they're getting an OV. Penn State has a lot of momentum with Clemens. They have a staffer that has really strong ties to the Pacific Northwest. Schools closer to his current home, USC, Oregon, are very involved. He just set up an official visit with USC as well. So Michigan's kind of in that mix. I think with him, official visits will be huge, but I like where the Wolverines stand. I like his connections. Andro Anthony will be big in helping recruit him. So those are a few of the guys that have set up official visits, and I think more are to come over the next couple of weeks.
I kind of do like that, schools like Michigan and we talked about how other schools are doing it, are kind of putting the pressure on the NCAA, like, hey, we're locking in some plans here, and you better let us go through with it, I guess. I mean, there's nothing they can do if the NCAA does extend it, but I think it's huge. How good do you think this staff is going to be? Like, we've seen how good they've been over Zoom, really even going back to when it was, they didn't bring in those 6 new assistants when we were with the old staff last year. We would talk about just how good of a job the staff did recruiting over Zoom. Jim Harbaugh getting, Zoom calls set up by Matt Dudek and all that type of stuff last summer into the season. How good do you think this staff that is already kind of really impressing on the recruiting trail is going to be once they can get kids on campus, be with them in person, interact with them, once that those kids can interact with the Michigan players in person and things like that?
Yeah, I think it's going to help a lot. This staff is extremely young across the board. I mean, all the new hires, for the most part, are younger guys, from Ron Bellamy to Mo Linguist to even a guy like Matt Weiss to defensive coordinator Mike McDonald. This is a really young staff that has connected well with kids virtually. I think in person, it'll help even more. I know Mo Linguist was terrific when he was locking down kids at Texas A&M on their visits. He had, I think, 3 top 100 DBs all commit to him while on campus. So he's a guy that really impresses kids when they arrive and their families as well. I was actually texting with Will Johnson earlier today, kind of about some 7-on-7 stuff, but he mentioned the Miles Pollard visit. And Miles Pollard was obviously on campus this past weekend. Everything went well. And he's another kid that hasn't locked in an official visit date, but his father told me they love the visit and will be back for an official visit in June. So they're in the process of locking in a date. But, we started talking about the Miles Pollard visit, and Will Johnson told me, I'm telling you, EJ, all these kids have to do is see Michigan, and we're going to get it rolling. So I trust Will Johnson. I think, once these guys get on campus, once they spend time with the coaches, once they spend time with him, I feel like Will Johnson's just going to live in Ann Arbor every weekend. He's just going to be there every weekend helping recruit. So I think that's going to be big as well. And I think the officials will go extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, he might as well. I mean, maybe Dion has some NFL money. Just get an apartment in Ann Arbor, okay, and just set up shop, and he can have kids cycle through there. He's already really helping with, the fact that these kids actually can't go in the facilities yet or see the coaches while they're on campus, but they can see Will Johnson, who's just right around the corner, probably, 30 minutes away from Ann Arbor, 45 at most. So that is a huge asset. And Will Johnson, man, you can't say enough about how he's going to lead this class. You're already seeing it. And I'm sure we're going to see it more and more, especially when these kids do start coming to campus more, where it can actually get paid for by the school as an official visit. Let's shift our focus to quarterback recruiting for the class of 2022. We've talked about a few times how Michigan probably won't land one of those elite guys. It's really hard to do 2 cycles in a row, considering Michigan got J.J. McCarthy in the last cycle, but 2 names really starting to emerge here on the board. Alex Orji, who is a dual threat quarterback, and you've kind of mentioned, you kind of updated our subscribers about this earlier on in the week, how Michigan's kind of going after some more mobile quarterbacks now that Matt Weiss is the quarterbacks coach. So Him and then Nate Johnson, two 3-star guys. Alex out of Texas and Nate out of California. Those two really starting to rise up the board.
Yeah, quarterback recruiting this cycle has been really weird, but I think those guys are really starting to emerge. They want a guy this cycle to come in after JJ, who is a borderline 5-star. And Michigan's not the only school that's having a bit of an issue recruiting quarterbacks. So you look at Oklahoma, which has really done a great job of getting transfer portal quarterbacks in, and obviously they landed Spencer Rattler and now Caleb Williams, a 5-star last cycle, and they're having a little bit of trouble getting a quarterback in, even though Lincoln Riley is very quarterback friendly. So anytime you land a 5-star, borderline 5-star guy, I feel like you're going to have a little bit of an issue having a guy come in after him. And on top of that, it's just a weak year across the board for quarterbacks. So what Michigan's doing is I think they're taking the approach of let's go out and find a mobile quarterback that has a lot of athleticism, that has position flexibility, that can be an upside guy that could turn into something. If it doesn't work out at quarterback, he could turn into another position. And if he does work out at quarterback, he could really boom. Matt Weiss obviously came over from the Baltimore Ravens, where he had a dynamic, superior athlete in Lamar Jackson, who, is not necessarily known as the best passer in the world, but he's definitely known as one of the best offensive weapons in the NFL. So you saw what Lamar Jackson was able to do at the college level at Louisville. And so I think they're looking at guys that can have maybe a Lamar Jackson upside type that has, nobody's going to be Lamar Jackson, but that has that type of skill set. So you look at Nate Johnson, and he is that true dual threat quarterback. You look at Alex Orji, he's also that true dual threat quarterback. Starting off with Johnson, he's way out in Fresno, same area that produced Xavier Worthy. He's a guy that, again, isn't necessarily the best passer. You watch his film, and there's still some mechanical work to do. He is playing this spring in full pads, so it'll be interesting to see how his development comes along. Some schools like him more as a defensive back. He only has a handful of offers, but Michigan thinks he's a guy that can come in and play the quarterback position. And again, position flexibility. If it doesn't work out, move him over to safety. I mean, D1 schools like him there as well. But he is a terrific athlete, and he's a guy they're going to continue to evaluate. But right now, I would say he's number one on the quarterback board. Right behind him is Alex Orji, who the Michigan staff just offered this week. Jim Harbaugh personally called him and extended the offer and told him, look, we really, really like you as a quarterback. We want to give you the opportunity to play quarterback. Orji, like Nate Johnson's a guy that some view as potentially a safety or even a linebacker. He has a really muscular build. He's a taller guy that can run. He's just a really, really impressive athlete. I had an opportunity to see Orji when I was down covering the University of Texas. He's been on the recruiting radar for a couple of years. I actually saw him when he was younger at a 7-on-7 tournament, but I covered his two older brothers, Alston and Anthony. Both ended up at Vanderbilt. And he comes from a family that's extremely smart. His parents both immigrated from Nigeria, and both got their degrees and are very academic oriented. So when that Michigan offer came, that was big for the family. They really love what Michigan has to offer from an education standpoint. And Mo Linguist has actually known the Orji family for a while. He recruited Alston at Texas A&M. He's known Alex's father, Willie, for years. Willie resides in Rockwall. Maurice is from Mesquite. Those two towns are literally right next to each other. And so I think the relationships are there with Alex already. I could see both of those guys potentially ending up at Michigan. I don't think that Michigan would take two. I think they probably just want one quarterback. But right now, Michigan's in a strong position for both. And it's clear that they are targeting that project upside dual threat. And Matt Weiss has talked a lot to Nate Johnson about Lamar Jackson, and I expect he'll do the same with Alex as we move forward.
Yeah, not a bad, selling point. He's worked with Lamar Jackson. Hey, I can take you to where you want to go in your career. Um, Before we go, are those probably the two most likely guys that Michigan would get? Obviously, we said, probably just land one, but are those the two, I guess, with the best chance of ending up at Michigan?
Yeah, right now, like I said, it's a weak year at quarterback, so it'll be interesting to see if more names maybe pop up. But I think those two guys are at the top of the board, and I think those two guys, are likely. Michigan went out to Fresno and landed Xavier Worthy last year. Like I said, it's not like Nate Johnson has a ton of big appealing offers from schools like USC, Oregon. Haven't really jumped in the mix for him yet with Alex Orji, Oklahoma has offered, but I'm not sure they're necessarily pushing as hard. Baylor's involved, Arkansas is involved, but he's open to leaving home. His two brothers did. They went out to Nashville to go out to Vandy, which is another very prestigious academic school. So I think that the Orji family is completely fine having their sons go out and explore options further away from home. So yeah, overall, I feel like these two guys are legit options for Michigan with very high interest.
There you have it. Two names emerging there on the quarterback board. That is our show for this week. Thank you to our sponsors, Lewis Jewelers. Remember to use the promo code BLUE60 at thewolverine.com.